Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, the drought that is occurring in the west part of the United States is not only there, it's also extended down into Mexico. And now it is threatening to affect the imports of beef that we get from Mexico. Not only that, but it's really affecting what they are doing down there as far as being able to raise beef and the livelihoods of many ranchers that are down there. As it states here, in drought-plagued northern Mexico, tens of thousands of cows are starving to death. And that is extremely sad. Not only for the cows, ladies and gentlemen, of course it's sad for these poor cows that are starving to death, but also for the ranchers that have put their entire lives into raising beef for their countrymen. It says here that 2 years of extreme drought have turned large stretches of northern Mexico into a boneyard. Between starvation and ranchers forced to prematurely sell or slaughter their livestock, officials say that the number of cattle in Sonora has dropped by nearly half, ladies and gentlemen, from 1.1 million to about 635,000. And this rancher here, Mr. Gutierrez, says there is nothing for them to eat. There used to be big ranches here, but now it's pure sorrow. It is an unimaginable loss for a state that is world famous for its high quality cows, and where beef is not just a central part of the diet and economy, but also a tradition that binds families together. It continues to say that by the second half of the 20th century, livestock had become big business here in Mexico, with cattle roaming over 85% of the state. Tens of thousands of ranchers raised steers to sell at auction, many for export to the United States. Ranchers here say Sonora's mix of native grasses give their beef a distinctive texture. He continues to say that he doesn't see a future in ranching. He says it's really good business when it rains, but lately all they've been having there are losses. He said that he suffered a lot and he doesn't want his cattle to suffer as well, and doesn't know whether he's going to rebuild or just give up the herd. And that's the same thing, ladies and gentlemen, that's happening here in the United States, not only to ranchers but to farmers as well. There's farmers and ranchers that have had those businesses for generations, and now they're in such dire need for water, because water not only allows their cattle to drink, but it also allows vegetation to grow for the cattle to graze, and it also allows for feed to be grown so that they can feed their cattle. So right now they're fighting over this, and I don't mean fighting in the literal terms, but in the marketplace. And go ahead and take a look at this, where it states that drought-stricken western U.S. braces for water wars. And like I said, it's not water wars in the literal term, but that it's going to affect a lot of the markets that rely on this water, and especially the farming and ranching market, which we rely on as humanity the most. Why? Because they feed us. Now it says here that tourism, landscaping, home building, and farming are just some of the businesses that feel the economic crunch of a devastating drought in the U.S. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, California has had a water futures in the NASDAQ, I believe, for about a year now. And since its inception, those water prices have almost doubled. I actually did a video on this a while back showing you where water prices went from, I believe it was in the 400s to now being in the $800 range. Agriculture consumes more than 70% of the water that is available, and during drought years, agriculture will drink up even a larger percentage of water supplies. And that makes sense, because if there's less water, agriculture still needs pretty much the same amount of water in order to survive, unless they do what they've been doing here for the last several months, which is plowing down crops and getting rid of perennial crops such as almond trees that last a long time but consume a lot of water just to stay alive. Here it says that California had another extreme drought from 2011 to 2016. However, scientists consider this to be a mega drought. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, a mega drought usually lasts between 30 to 40 years, so it's going to be happening for decades. This is not something that's going to go away next year. It's not something that's going to go away if it rains a few inches in one day. more than likely, if it does rain a few inches in one day in mega drought conditions, what we'll have are flash floods. Because once the ground has been dry for so long, it gets too hard to quickly absorb any water that has been placed on it, especially if it's a lot of water in one shot. Now I wanted to go over this with you real quick. That way you can understand how it is that droughts in other parts of the world actually affect the import of beef here in the United States. It's kind of hard to believe that the United States imports as much beef as it does. I wouldn't have believed the number had someone told me until I saw this right here. But here it shows that the U.S. on an annual basis imports over 1 billion pounds of beef from around the world, with Canada being the #1 exporter of beef to the United States. And as you can see here, Canada actually exported more beef to the United States this year than they did last year. However, with the droughts that Canada's facing as well, I think that maybe next year this may be a different picture. Here Mexico, you can see, has dropped from 284 million pounds last year to 252 million pounds this year. It doesn't seem like a lot, ladies and gentlemen, but when we are having beef shortages here as well, it's going to add up. And people may say, well, there's no beef shortage in the market. Well, there is for people that cannot afford it. You see, ladies and gentlemen, there may still be beef on the shelves, but what about for those that cannot afford it now because of how the prices have gone up? They have a meat shortage because they can't afford it. It's just economics instead of scarcity. However, if this mega drought continues, and it will according to scientists, then there will be scarcity in our future. Another country that we import a lot of beef from is Australia. And as you can see, between last year and this year, we've got a 46% decline in the imports of beef from Australia. Now it looks here like we imported more beef from Brazil this year than last. However, we all know about the droughts that are occurring in Brazil right now. So I would imagine that this number will be going down next year. And holy smokes, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, Honduras. Now I know that Honduras doesn't normally export that much beef to us, about 3.5 million pounds, but look at the drop in their exports to us, or our imports from them, from 3.5 million pounds to 65,000 pounds, a 98% decrease. I can only imagine what's going to happen when most countries stop exporting. And you can see down the rest of the line how we are going to be affected by imports from all of these other countries that are currently having droughts. Another one, Argentina. Argentina, we imported more this year, but I would assume that next year we'll be importing a lot less because they're also going through strife with lack of water there as well. I will go ahead and leave the link to this article right here, ladies and gentlemen, and the one about the cows, the cattle in Mexico at the very bottom of the description of this video, in case you want to revisit these and take a look at these numbers again. Other than that, thank you very much for joining in today. I hope you have a good Friday today. Remember that later on this afternoon at 2 p.m. Alaska time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we will be having our Friday live stream, and this is going to be a great live stream indeed. So remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world will be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper. I'm out.